welcome back to my channel. I'm Rachel, the owner and creator here at the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. Today is Wednesday and I actually have some thrift flips for you guys for today. It felt so good to finally get a chance to sit down in my kitchen and paint something. It feels like forever since I've been able to do that. Things around here have been so busy trying to get the nursery up and running for the season and prepare for my big event that we had on Saturday, which it rained, so that kind of stunk, but we still did okay. Anyway, it's just been so crazy and it was nice to be able to sit down and do a little creating. I hope you guys like what I came up with. I realized that I had not even had a chance to use any of the new products that I just got in from Redesign with Prima. So my goal for this video was to pick out a product and create a summary vignette using that and then tie everything together. So that is what I did for today's video. I did 3 projects that all tie in with the same theme. I hope you guys like them as much as I do, and without further ado, let's get to today's video. As I mentioned in the intro, I wanted to create a small summary vignette for today's video, and I wanted an accent piece that would just be a nice solid color. So I chose this little candle holder that I've had in my stash for quite some time, and I am giving this 2 good even coats of DIY's color called Queen Bee. Now this is a very yellow color, and you don't see me use this bright of a color very often, but I do like this color because it can be used for spring, summer, and right into fall. So again, I'm just going over this with 2 good coats of that Queen Bee paint. And when I'm painting candlesticks, I like all of my brush strokes to kind of go in the same direction. So you can see I just kind of go around the candlestick with those. Once it was dry, I went in with a damp shop towel and just did a little bit of wet distressing. So I'm just taking off a little bit of that paint in the areas that I want to see some of that wood shining through. Then it's time to seal my paint, and for this I decided I would try to tone down that yellow just a little bit with some white wax. So I'm going over it with 1 good coat of DIY's white wax, and then I'm going to use a dry shop towel to wipe back the excess wax, and then this little project will be finished. I think this little candle holder will be the perfect accent for the next 2 projects. My second project is this watering can. Now I got this with no intention of doing anything with it, but it's so faded and the inside's kind of rusty, and I really wouldn't recommend at this point using this as an actual watering can. So instead I am going to make it over into a piece of decor. So I am going over this with a couple coats of DIY's Crinoline, which is one of my favorite colors by DIY. It's this very creamy white color, and again here you can see I'm going all in one direction with my brush strokes just so that I have a nice cohesive look to my piece. I love the versatility of DIY paint. You can use it to paint just about any surface. And as you can see here, I'm going over this metal watering can and it's giving me no issues. I did have to go over it with 2 really good coats of paint, and then I just hit a couple spots with a 3rd coat where you could still see a little shadow of that metal shining through. Once I was finished painting my watering can and it was completely dry, it was time to move on to decorating it. Now you can see this transfer is the inspiration for my colors that I chose for today's projects. And this one is called Yellow Bliss. It is one of the brand new ones out of the Redesign with Prima release, and I absolutely love it. So all I did was cut out the piece of transfer I wanted to use, figured out where I wanted it on my watering can, and then I peeled that backer off, laid my transfer down, and just kind of rubbed my hands over it to get it seated into the paint. And then I'm using that transfer stick to rub it down into the paint as I peel back that piece of vellum. Now, if you do this, just make sure you go slow, give yourself some time, be patient, and if you do pull up a little piece of the transfer as you're going, just lay that piece of vellum back down and re-rub that spot until all of your transfer is adhered. Once you're finished, you want to take a piece of that vellum and go over your transfer really, really well. Now I did this in regular time just so that you can see I really take my time and rub that transfer down into my piece, making sure I'm removing any air bubbles or wrinkles from the transfer and that it's stuck down very, very well. Now, in all honesty, I almost completely forgot about the bottom of this watering can, you guys. I don't know what I was thinking, but before I could even paint it, I needed to remove some sticky glue that was there from an old price tag or something. So I used some lemon oil for that, and then I went ahead and gave the bottom 2 good coats of the crinoline paint as well. Now, as I've mentioned many times in the past, DIY paint is clay-based and can be reactivated with water, so you definitely want to seal it. My go-to sealer is normally wax for the DIY paints, and this little watering can is no exception. So I'm going over this with one really good coat of DIY's clear wax, and you can see I'm kind of following in my brush strokes with that wax, just kind of following those along. And then I am wiping back the excess with a dry shop towel. Now at this point, my watering can is turning out pretty cute and I could have absolutely stopped at this stage. However, I decided I wanted to add just a little bit of grungy patina just along the top and the bottom of this watering can to give it a little bit of age as though it had been around for a while and been used and loved. So I'm just going around with a little bitty brush with a light amount of the dark wax by DIY and in a swirly kind of motion, just rubbing that in. Like I said, just along the bottom and the top and just anywhere I want to add a touch of shadow. And then I'm using a dry shop towel to wipe back anywhere where I think it's a little too heavy. I think this was honestly the perfect way to accent the little bit of detail this watering can had and to just give it a little bit more personality. I love the way it came together and I really hope you guys do too. My third and final project for today is this little wooden tray that I picked up at the Goodwill not too terribly long ago. This was a pretty color, but I had another vision for it. So I started by giving it a sanding. I have gotten to the point where it's hard sometimes to trust the paints that other people use on their projects. And I just wanted to get down to at least some wood showing so that I knew I'd have good adhesion for the paints I would be using. Once I had it sanded down pretty well, I went ahead and rinsed it off in my sink and then set it aside to dry for a bit before bringing it back outside to give it some spray paint. I wanted this to be a base coat for some milk paint, and I am just using Heirloom White by Rustoleum. My goal here was to get some crackle from my milk paint and to have that heirloom white showing through the crackle. I thought it would be a nice complement to the crinoline that was on the watering can. Once the spray paint was dry to the touch, I brought my tray back inside and began painting it with the Sweet Pickins milk paint. This color is called Basil. It's one of my favorites. I love this dark green, and I did not add any extra bond to this paint, again, because I wanted to get a chippy or crackly finish. Now, to help speed this process along, I grabbed my hairdryer and used that to give a little bit of heat and help that paint dry faster. The thing with milk paint too is once you have your crackle set, you really don't need to use your heat source again. It'll keep cracking. It's like it has a memory of where the cracks are going to be. I did, however, use mine because I was just in a hurry, you guys, and I needed to get this project done. So this is the second coat going on. You can see I've got great coverage. I went over it in just a couple spots with a third coat, not the entire thing. And again, I'm just using my hairdryer to get that dry so that I can move on to the next step. One thing about milk paint is it can tend to get a little bit chunky as you're using it. And I had noticed on this piece, as I was painting it with my second coat, I did have some chunks that had formed in the paint. And I am not a chunk girl. I don't like chunks on my painted pieces. So I grabbed some 220 grit sandpaper and just went over the entire thing to knock off any chunks and give myself a nice smooth surface. I'm not doing any distressing, just trying to make sure I've got nice smooth paint. Once I was finished with that, I went ahead and grabbed a damp shop towel and wiped it down very, very well to make sure I didn't have any sanding dust left on my piece. This step was especially important because I was going to be putting a transfer on this piece, and transfers will not stick if there's sanding dust left behind. For my transfer, I'm going to be using another piece of that yellow Bliss transfer set. I chose this one to go in the corner. So again, I'm just peeling off that backer, placing my transfer where I want it, smoothing it out with my hands, and then I'm grabbing my transfer stick and I'm going to begin the process of applying that transfer. Just rubbing it down into my piece and peeling back that piece of vellum as I go. Now, again, in order to ensure really good adhesion of your transfer, it's a good idea to burnish it in, and I am using a piece of the vellum that I tore off the back of it to just rub over the entire transfer really, really well to make sure I don't have any wrinkles or air bubbles and that it's well seated into my piece. Now, like DIY clay-based paint, Sweet Pickins milk paint also needs to be sealed. And for that, I chose to go with my DIY clear wax to start. And again, I am just using my soft bristle brush to apply a fairly liberal coat of that clear wax to my entire piece and using a dry shop towel to wipe back any excess wax. Now, when I first started this project, I had an idea in my head of what the crackle would look like with the green over that creamy colored paint. However, I really wasn't digging it, you guys. I like it, but it just seemed a little too harsh to me. So as I'm going over this with the clear wax, I am kind of thinking in my head that I might go over it with some dark wax. And that is what I ended up doing. I actually took a little brush and just did a corner to see what I thought, and I decided I really liked it much better. So that's what I ended up doing. So I'm just applying a coat of that DIY dark wax right over the clear wax. And that clear wax helps to act as a barrier between the paint and the dark wax so that the dark wax doesn't make my paint feel really muddy. It's just giving it a nice patina, but it's also getting into those cracks in the paint and helping to tone them down, which is exactly what I was going for. So you can see here as I'm going over this whole entire tray and then wiping back that excess, that it's just giving it a really nice aged look. And I love the little bit of patina, and again the fact that the white isn't so glaringly apparent in the crackle. In the end, I really like how this tray ended up coming together, and I think it's the perfect anchor for my little summery 3-piece vignette. And I really hope you guys like it as much as I do. For today, you guys. I hope you liked my projects and my little summer themed vignette using that beautiful new transfer by Redesign with Prima. They did have quite a few gorgeous new items come out in their latest release, and they're all available on my website at www.theeclecticcottagespokane.com. So please check those out there. I also carry DIY paint and products, as well as Sweet Pickins milk paint and products, some Recycled Treasures decoupage papers, and then of course Redesign with Prima. So again, go check those out on my website. If you did enjoy today's video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. I so appreciate that. And if you haven't already, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel and then just hit the little notification bell so you don't miss anything. And then don't forget to drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of my projects for today. For Saturday's video, I am hoping to keep up the trend and do some more projects in my kitchen. I already have a few picked out that I'm looking forward to completing using some more of the beautiful new products by Redesign with Prima. So I hope you'll join me back here for those. Until then, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week and beginning of the weekend. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you sticking it out with me as I go through all the craziness this spring, and I will see you guys back here on Saturday. Bye.